Office Act for now. His Excellency is not sleeping on that. He is already taking some actions. If you can see, the Marina Resort was shut down yesterday. And that is to tell you that this incident is taken serious and all the measures needed to safeguard lives and property in this area of the economy is being addressed. And you will hear that in no distant time from the authorities concerned.
Edo State government has offered an automatic employment to the best graduating student of the Lagos State University, LASU, Aminat Yusuf. Yusuf, a law graduate, is the first student to graduate with a CGPA of 5.0 in the institution's 40 years history. Yusuf is an indigen of Edo State.
I'm very passionate as a child, and the fact that women of today now have more opportunities than our mothers did, I wanted to also show that to full extent, if given that opportunity, we can get the best possible. So, and God willing, God's support, and my parents' support, I was able to achieve that. And the goal is to excel beyond, in fact, my imagination. I intend to go as far as my abilities can take me. And it would interest everybody to know that I'm very passionate. I'm patriotic as far as those things is concerned. It will go to, wherever I find myself in the world, I will definitely come back to invest in my motherland.
What you've done is reenacting that confidence in the girl child and also creating an awareness that the female folks can actually achieve what they want to achieve. The struggle for Edo State today is that struggle to liberalize the system and free everybody to the extent that you can live your dream to your fulfillment. Because our dream and to sustain democracy is to the extent that a child of nobody, in quotes, a child of that less privileged, a child of that farmer, a child of that tomato seller, a child of that peasant farmer can be whatever he wants to be, competing with the child of the billionaire favorably and achieving their goal. That is our dream, and that is what democracy is supposed to represent.
The Executive Secretary of the National Universities Commission, NUC, Professor Abubakar Abdurrashid, has resigned from the Commission. He made this known at the Commission's headquarters while approving the issuance of a provisional license to Kogi State University, Kaba. Reports say Abdurrashid did not state the reasons for his resignation. Now to some political stories. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has decried a report by the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime in Nigeria, indicating that 14.4% of citizens aged between 15 and 64 abuse drugs. Obi mentioned that the figure was significantly higher than the global average of 56%. He also blamed leadership failure in the country, high rate of poverty and frustration, peer group pressure among the youth, and the high rate of unemployment, among others, as factors fueling drugs and substance abuse among the youths, while praising the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, for its tireless efforts in combating drug abuse in the country. Obi said more needs to be done by the government in rescuing the youths from a further slide into drug addiction. And youths took to the streets in Ekiti State to commemorate the World Drug Day. The Youth Council called on the government at all levels to be more proactive in the fight against the menace. Speaking with journalists, the chairman of the council, Segun Famuyibo, challenged the government to go after drug dealers.
It has affected youth generally. The intake of or abuse of drugs, most especially those that traffic, those that sells it to our youth, are the most people we want government to seriously manhandle, because if these drugs are not being spread in all markets, it will not be easy for our youth to access it. So the government should and security agencies should work together and help us fish out those that do this drug business and get it across to our youth to siphon them one, and by them taking it, it destroys their future and so many plans they have already made arrangements for themselves.
My advice to them is that we are all aware what the effect of drug abuse, what it has caused to lives, and what it caused to future of generations. And the best thing is for them to take the advocacy to nook and crannies of the state to ensure that the campaign against drug abuse is everywhere in the state.
Benue State Commander of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, Gloria Bai, has disclosed that there is a strong interlink between human trafficking and drug trafficking. Bai cautioned against the lack of attention given to the menaces done with other crimes. At the same event to mark World Drug Day, the State Commander of NDLEA, Lami Musa, assured Benue residents of the agency's commitment in eradicating illicit drugs in the state.
Drug abuse and drug trafficking are major problems affecting every aspect of life. However, when drug abuse becomes part of human trafficking risks for victims rising significantly, it is therefore essential to take an integral approach to tackle these issues, addressing drug abuse, providing effective treatment to addicts, and implementing comprehensive strategies to support trafficking victims. The NDLEA and other law enforcement organizations of the like nature must tighten their control over the manufacture and trafficking of illegal drugs.
The theme of this year's celebration is People First. Stop stigmatization and discrimination, strengthen prevention. The aim is to raise awareness about the importance of treating people who are drug users with respect and empathy, providing evidence-based voluntary service for all. We are working assiduously in pursuance of our mandate to win the war against drug abuse and trafficking.
And still ahead, Wagner to continue operations in the Central African Republic and Mali. We'll bring you details of this and more when we return. Stay with us.
Hey, come big head. Oya no vex. Where you dey?
I did bus stop.
Iyem don settle. Mola won't make you show.
Correct. I dey come. Make I enter bus.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Cross Trending.
Welcome back now to other parts of Africa. At least 12 civilians were killed on Sunday in bombardments by soldiers and paramilitaries who are now clashing in a new town in Darfur, a vast region in western Sudan that is constantly being fled by refugees. Since April 15, the war between the army led by General Abdel Fattah Burhan and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces of General Mohammed Hamdan Daglo has left more than 2,800 people dead and more than 2.5 million people displaced. That's according to the UN's figures. One of the heaviest tolls is of the El Geneina, West Darfur, where since April, tribal fighters and civilians have mingled in fighting between the military and paramilitaries. More than 10,000 people have registered as refugees in South Sudan after fleeing the conflict in Sudan, so says the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA. Report says while overall 130,000 people have fled into South Sudan since the fighting started, most of them were South Sudanese returning home. OCHA said the latest influx continues to compound a dire situation as the arrival numbers are projected to continue to increase as fighting continues. Many of the fleeing refugees reportedly witnessed violence and exploitation, such as extortion and looting during their journey to South Sudan. The first set of results in Sierra Leone's presidential election, with the votes from 60% of the polling stations counted, show that the incumbent Julius Maada Bio is in the lead. The Electoral Commission says that he has 56% of the vote, with his closest rival, Samura Kamara of the All People's Congress APC, getting 42%. In order to win in the first round, a candidate needs more than 55% of the vote. The presidential candidate of the opposition All People's Congress APC, Samura Kamara, has raised an alarm over police's threat as votes from the just concluded elections are being tallied. On his Twitter page, Kamara alleged that live bullets were fired at his office inside the party's headquarters in the capital, Freetown. In a statement, the Sierra Leone police said the members of the APC had paraded through Freetown announcing to the public that they had won the election. They attracted a huge crowd of supporters outside the headquarters who started harassing passers-by, according to the force, which triggered the release of tear gas canisters to disperse the crowd. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has disclosed that Wagner operations will continue in Mali and the Central African Republic, CAR. There have been questions over the future of those African deployments, which were seen by many as unofficially representing Russia. Lavrov said the aborted rebellion would not change Russia's relationship with those he called partners and friends. And outside Africa, the Russian mercenary leader has said his forces had not intended to overthrow Russia's government and had demonstrated the weaknesses in Russian security. In the first public remarks released since he was last seen on Saturday night as he withdrew from a city occupied by his men, Yevgeny Prigozhin said his fighters had called off their campaign to avert bloodshed. He said the group went as a demonstration of protest, not to overthrow the government of the country. Prigozhin shocked the world by leading the armed mutiny, only to abruptly call it off as his fighters approached the capital, Kremlin. Meanwhile, President Vladimir Putin has issued his first statement since the armed mutiny by the Wagner mercenary group. Putin congratulated participants of an industrial forum. It was not immediately clear when and where Putin's statement was recorded. Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin has called on all to remain united behind President Vladimir Putin following Saturday's aborted mutiny by heavily armed mercenary fighters. Under a deal late on Saturday that diffused the crisis and averted possible bloodshed, the Kremlin said the Wagner Group mercenaries would return to base, while their leaders, Yevgeny Prigozhin, would move to Belarus.
В эти дни страна столкнулась с очередным вызовом. Была совершена попытка дестабилизировать внутреннюю ситуацию в России. Члены правительства находились на своих рабочих местах под руководством президента, действовали четко, слаженно, на всех уровнях сохраняли стабильность ситуации, чтобы не допустить усугубления обстановки и защитить граждан от всех возникающих возможных.
NATO's head Jens Stoltenberg believes the weekend aborted mutiny showed that President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine